By the early Cold War, military planners had learned a hard lesson from World War II and countless winter campaigns. Sleeping bags tore, soaked through, lost loft, and failed under sustained abuse. Soldiers needed something that could be dragged, frozen, thawed, slept on bare ground, and still function the next night. What emerged was not a bag at all, but a bedroll system built for punishment rather than comfort. It looked crude compared to modern gear, yet it proved nearly indestructible and astonishingly effective in conditions where ordinary sleeping bags collapsed. What the Cold War bedroll actually was, and why it mattered. The bedroll was a layered sleep system used by Soviet, Eastern Bloc and some NATO forces during the Cold War. Instead of a single insulated sack, it combined a dense wool blanket or quilted pad, a ground barrier, and a heavy outer shell made from canvas or oil-treated cotton. Each layer served a distinct function. If one failed, the system still worked. This redundancy was intentional. Military engineers understood that gear would be abused, neglected and repaired in the field with minimal tools. Why this system outperformed conventional sleeping bags? Traditional sleeping bags rely on loft to trap air. Once compressed, wet or torn, they lose effectiveness rapidly. The Cold War bedroll relied on mass, density and moisture resistance. Wool retained warmth, even when damp. Canvas blocked wind and abrasion. The ground layer prevented conductive heat loss, which, is actually the primary cause of hypothermia during sleep. Soldiers could sleep on snow-frozen earth or even bare rock without destroying the system. Here's how soldiers deployed the bedroll in real conditions. The bedroll was unrolled directly on the ground, often over pine boughs or straw when available. The wool layer went closest to the body, followed by additional blankets if temperatures dropped. The canvas shell wrapped around everything and was tied or buckled, forming a sealed but breathable cocoon. Importantly, soldiers slept on top of part of the insulation rather than entirely inside it, allowing body weight to work with the system instead of crushing it. Why moisture management made this system nearly unbeatable? Cold War designers understood that dryness was more important than softness. Wool fibres absorb moisture into their core while remaining warm to the touch. Canvas shed external moisture while allowing vapour to escape. Condensation passed outward instead of freezing inside. In freezing conditions, this meant the bedroll dried itself over time, rather than accumulating ice. Modern synthetic bags often fail at this point, becoming cold traps once moisture builds up. This is where the bedroll really proved itself beyond doubt. In places like Siberia, Eastern Europe, and those high-altitude training grounds, these bedrolls endured years of use. Veterans, they reported sleeping through snowstorms with nothing more than a shelter half overhead. The system worked in mud, rain, and sub-zero cold. It wasn't lightweight, but it was, without question, dependable. When logistics failed, the bedroll did not. Modern survivalists can really learn a thing or two from this design. If you're preparing for long-term outdoor living, winter emergencies, or maybe even off-grid travel, the old Cold War bedroll has a valuable lesson to teach. Durability, honestly, matters a lot more than just convenience. A good wool blanket, a dense ground mat, and a heavy outer wrap will often outperform many modern sleeping bags, especially in harsh conditions. So, let's talk about how to actually apply this knowledge with some practical steps today. Start with a thick wool blanket, or, if you can find one, a surplus military liner. Pair that with a ground barrier, something like a rubberized mat, wax canvas, or a heavy-duty tarp that you use only underneath. Then wrap everything up in a canvas shell or a heavy cotton sheet that's been treated with wax or oil. Now, when you're using the system, roll it up tightly and secure it with straps. When it's time to sleep, unroll it completely and try to avoid compressing the insulation under your body. Just let the layers do their job, really. You know, there's a reason why this approach still beats out all that fancy modern gear in emergencies. Sleeping bags these days, well, they're optimized for comfort and weight, but not really for taking a beating. When you're dealing with prolonged cold exposure, it's the kind of gear you can dry out, patch up, and even repurpose that truly becomes invaluable. A bedroll, you know, can be used as a shelter wall, insulation for a wounded person, or even padding for equipment. It's not exactly specialized, but rather it's adaptable. So, what the Cold War bedroll teaches us about survival thinking is quite something. This system was frankly born from a mindset that expected failure and planned for it. It assumed mud, snow, and, well, neglect. It always prioritized function over fashion. That philosophy, honestly, is just as relevant now as it was back in the 1950s. If you appreciate hard-earned historical solutions that still hold up today, do consider subscribing to In the Beginning. Share this guide with fellow history buffs and survival enthusiasts, and help keep practical knowledge alive where it belongs.